One thing I can do in the classroom is kind of operate outside of this high school structure that the kids are used to, and I can at least provide a space where it's not about grades, it's not about getting it right, it's not about
Joshua Afiriyie. He was a director and one of my closest friends. So yeah, introduce yourself. What's your name? Where are you from? Kind of like hobbies and stuff, like just like the basics.
Yeah, my name is Josh. Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. Get a lot of hate for that, but it's fine. We have the best diners. Our ocean, not so much, but what else about me? My hobbies are martial arts. I like walking. I like listening to music. I like creating, I like drawing, painting, singing, dancing. I have 2 plants that I really care about. One's a money tree and the other one's like a little tiny succulent. I also have a cat, Dr. Dre, who I also love a lot. What else do I like to do? I'm a teaching artist, I should say. It's my job, that's how I get my monies.
Monies?
My monies. The funds. The cha-chings.
The funds for the artist.
Exactly.
So before we jump into like the artist teaching, what you draw and everything, thoughts on Central New Jersey?
Thoughts on Central New Jersey. It does exist. Let me start there. Okay. It does exist. Anybody who disagrees, they're probably not from Central Jersey, because we're not South Jersey and we're not North Jersey. And if I'm an hour away from New York and I'm an hour away from Philadelphia, is that not smack dab in the middle?
That is true.
I'm just saying. Those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Okay, so what do you like to draw?
Anything, honestly. Literally whatever comes out of me, frankly. Actually, I really find myself drawing eyes a lot. Because I started reading manga pretty early. Especially Naruto, I was always obsessed with how the author would illustrate the eyes of the characters. And in anime in general, they make the eyes so expressive to the point where it's kind of comical, but I was always just intrigued by that, so I would just draw eyes over and over and over and again, kind of like the S's that people would draw in middle school.
The skateboarder.
Yes. But yeah, I draw eyes instead, and now I keep doing that. It's either that or I'll draw like sigils, I call them, which is just like, usually I'll start with a circle and then I'll just do some sort of repeating pattern out of the circle. And like sometimes they mean something, sometimes like I just do it. I just like the pattern.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Going into your teaching and everything, how did you get into teaching? And let's just start off with that. How did you get into teaching?
Yeah, I'll give you the tea, the teaching tea. I think I started, my first experience was in high school, because I did this volunteer opportunity with the Y, and it was like a literacy summer camp. So the kids were behind in reading and writing, and so there was a teacher who would help them kind of catch up during the summer, and I was one of like the assistants, me and like 3 other people, and I loved it. That is literally like such a core memory I have. And I never like taught in any capacity after that or like throughout college, never did it. But both my parents are teachers. My dad's a teacher. My dad was a high school teacher, a college professor. My mom used to teach Sunday school, so I grew up around it. And like I always knew I wanted to teach. Thought about being a high school English teacher at one point. Obviously didn't come to be. It didn't come to be, but yeah, then when I was graduating college, I needed something to do, and somebody from this program called Artist Year had zoomed into our film class, or my directing film class. They had zoomed in, and he spoke about the program and he talked about the opportunity, and I remember bookmarking it in my brain like, okay, if anything, I have this. Like once I graduate, I can do this. This seems safe, and it's something I've always wanted to do, so it really felt like a wish come true when I actually pursued the opportunity and I got into the program. But I did not know anything about teaching artistry. I didn't know that was a thing, but it's really nice. I don't need a teaching degree. I can just teach with the art degree that I have, and there's pros and cons to that, but I do find it's nice that artistry kind of comes first because I find that one thing I can do in the classroom is kind of operate outside of this high school structure that the kids are used to, and I can at least provide a space where it's not about grades, it's not about getting it right, it's not about meeting a standard, it's just about creating and like just getting things out of you or putting things together, or judging things, or there can be a departure from like the day-to-day. That's where I found myself now.
Would you say that creative like source and like teaching, would you say that excites you the most, or what excites you the most about teaching?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's really exciting. I have so much fun coming up with lesson plans, honestly. Like that is really exciting to me, and like figuring out how I can like put words together or put ideas together to facilitate learning for somebody else. Like how can I make this idea stick in someone's brain? How can I communicate this in a way that is applicable to this group or this age group of people within this amount of time? I think that's very exciting to me. And I also find like those one-on-one moments you have with students where you, as a teacher, you kind of get to guide them along their own learning or understanding of something. And as they're troubleshooting and they don't understand something, and the moment they do, and like you're there to witness that aha moment with them, or like even like when the learning moment or when the learning opportunity does happen, and like you can see in their eyes they're like listening to what you're saying and taking it in, that's always exciting to me, because those moments they don't always happen. So treasure them when they do.
Oh, that's amazing. How do you, especially in high school, how do you deal or handle the many different personalities within one classroom, and how do you kind of like manage that so that everyone kind of feels included and like kind of manage those personalities and differences and everything?
Yeah, I think my time in food service definitely helped, because when I was working at Chick-fil-A, like that's just what it was. You were dealing with so many different people. You were working with so many different people, and you were serving so many different kinds of people. So you kind of just have to like understand how to read their vibe and like, who is this person? What are they like? How do they communicate? What are their like tendencies? Like what kind of person is in front of me? And then I kind of just adjust myself so I can sync up with them properly. And I think like there's other practical ways to do that. Like this year I did one-on-ones across all 3 grade levels. So I sat down and I talked with every single student, and I just asked them questions about their interests, about their dislikes, what they liked about the class, what they didn't like about that class. And it's not even that their answers that would really tell me a lot. It's the things that would come up in between like our questions and our answers, and just like getting to experience their vibe. You get a sense for what kind of student they are, and then that kind of helps. And even like I'm in a dynamic where I have another teacher in the room, right? So a lot of times me and him, it's literally like we're parents. I'm mom and he's dad. Like that's the vibe it really gives, because he's the one who kind of comes in kind of hard and strict on them, whereas I'm the one who can like kind of provide a certain softness, if you will. Kind of like dad scolds you, and then like I'm mom like talking to you in your room later, like this is why your father said that, and he wasn't, he's just trying to do his job and he's really stressed.
Do you have like a favorite moment where it was like kind of like an aha moment, or like you could like see it when you're teaching and be like, okay, I'm impacting this individual person?
Yes. I can remember a couple moments with one of my students. He was trying to learn Premiere Pro, and he was trying to edit some holiday video. I don't even know. But one thing that my partner teacher inspired me to do more often is to not give the kids all the answers. If they're struggling, they need to learn how to struggle and troubleshoot themselves. Because a lot of times they have like a learned helplessness that sets in, where if they don't understand something with the computer, they'll just raise their hand and they'll wait for somebody to like, for me or Mr. Herrera to come and help them. Or one of my students was trying to figure out like how to navigate Premiere. And I'm just like, okay, so you tried that, you want to get here, but this isn't making sense, right? So what do? And he's like, and then like slowly, like he's getting it. He's starting to answer his own questions. Cause I'm just there like mirroring it back to him. I'm like, okay, that didn't work. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And at the end, like I could tell he was kind of like, all right, like I got this shit. I got a handle of it. And like that was cool. It felt satisfying because I was like, do you see? Like you are not helpless. Like you have the power. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Kind of going on the basis of school. The last time I interviewed you on my other channel, Leanza, we were still in college. Fast forward a couple of years, we graduated, went to LA.
Yes, we did.
What was your experience throughout Temple? And how do you feel now that you're graduated?
My experience throughout Temple. Whoa, okay. Well, now that I've graduated, I feel a lot freer. Honestly, from the moment we graduated, I felt very, very free. And I think like you get tired of school. I got tired of school personally. And like always having a structure, always being told what to do, always being responsible for classes and all these other standards are constantly being held to. I've always had a desire. I value my freedom very, very much. It was very gratifying to be out of college and finally able to exercise that freedom. And I think like my time in college, I think some people, their lives tend to go like childhood tends to be like the good part, and then like college is like also good, and then like the the lessons they have to learn, not that they don't happen early, but they hit later in life, right? As they're venturing out into adulthood. I felt the opposite. Just because I lost my father at a young age, like high school was very traumatic. College was like, I was free from the trauma, but I was still carrying it with me throughout college. So college was a lot of like things going wrong, or like me not understanding what inside of me was like causing these incidents or this like pervasive unhappiness. I could never really track down the source. So college was a lot of like stumbling and not understanding like what was going on inside of me. And I also think like you and the group of people like I had met at that time, like we all trauma bonded. Like we all had very similar like bullshit happen to us. And it kind of produced the same kind of wounds too. So like I think like the group of people I ended up going through college with was very unique. We also had COVID happen, so like part of our college experience was very insular and quiet and private. And I think for everybody, COVID was like a reality check. And I think for all of us, like on a spiritual level, like COVID was a time where we all kind of had to go within. And we all kind of had to just reflect on shit that we weren't dealing with, shit that we weren't processing, moves that we needed to make that we haven't been making. I feel like it was a reckoning for everybody. So for that to happen in college was also very interesting. But I think like the later half of college was very fruitful on a creative level because the directing concentration was a very fulfilling program that I went through at Temple. I think I met a lot of good people. I met a lot of mentors. I learned so much. I picked that film major on a whim. I never thought I'd be a filmmaker. I never thought I'd be a director. But I think like going through that program validated me in a lot of ways. And even like making Simmer and like making my senior thesis was like so, looking back, I can see how pivotal it was in my journey in terms of like coming to this point where I am at now, where I have this freedom and I've kind of hit so many rock bottoms. At the rock bottom, I've been handed a shovel at the same time and asked to like dig up shit as well. I did a lot of work at the rock bottom, so now that I'm kind of coming up to the surface, I have a very like, I've had experiences. I don't know how else to put it. I just feel at this point very grateful for everything that Temple University brought to me. I think it was all necessary, and I'm even more excited to like, I don't know what's gonna happen after from this point, you know what I mean? Like that's the craziest thing about graduating. Like there's so many unknowns and like no one's telling you, there's no timeline anymore. Like everything is kind of like up to you. So there's so much creation that like we're capable of at this stage of our lives, and that's very inspiring to me. Yeah.
And there we go. Yeah, we can take a little break.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna run up and get my monster.
Yeah. LOL. My monster.
Oh, monster.
What if I'm the monster who's been here all? What if I'm the monster?
Yeah, I totally wasn't recording that.
Leave that in.
Before we transition to summer, how was going to school in Philadelphia?
Going to school in Philadelphia was lit. I definitely did not want to go to school in New Jersey because everybody from my high school was going to like the same colleges. And I was so done with Jersey. I was so done with high school. I did not want to pursue post-secondary education in New Jersey. And I think like going to college at Temple University is a very specific experience because in North Philadelphia, there's so much gentrification going on, and like being a Temple student, being a transplant, like in this neighborhood, in this community, that like you're kind of a part of the gentrification. It's just like a weird, if you choose to be aware of those nuances, I think it makes the Temple experience a lot more complicated. It makes it complicated, but I definitely like Philadelphia a lot. I think the city has so much history. I think the city has so much art. I think that always drew me to Philadelphia, the like abundance of murals everywhere. I think the city has a charm. I like that certain parts of it are so like run down for lack of better term. Some parts of Philadelphia, it feels like the nature has like overtaken the urban landscape in like a post-apocalyptic way. I kind of dig that. I like the people here. I still feel like I haven't seen or experienced all of Philadelphia, which is a good problem to have, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's really pretty.
Yeah.
Now, we had Blair Winston on a couple months ago. He was a PA on Summer. So going from PA to the little brains of the entire film and the reason why it was created. How did you form that idea of Summer, and how did you kind of like put your idea onto papers and pages and words?
So when we had to start writing our senior thesis, I knew I wanted to write about my high school experience because I had gone to a predominantly white high school. Like I was saying, my high school experience was pretty traumatic in a lot of ways, and I was still processing a lot of that still in college. So I wanted to write about that experience, and I remember it just started with like, I had a very clear image of like the last frame of the film, which was always like Carter the main character looking directly like into the camera, but like he was like lying in bed and he was like looking at the camera like through his hands. And I always knew he was gonna get into a fight with a white kid at school, and him and his dad were gonna have an argument. The first thing I wrote actually was like the argument, or the end of the argument between Carter and his dad, and then Carter looking into the camera. And that was like the genesis of the idea. And then getting it out from my brain onto paper. I don't have like a formal writing process. I kind of write by the seat of my pants. So I wait for, sometimes it's like a emotional catastrophe, honestly, where like I'm really down bad, or like I'm having a certain experience and I get this urge to like get it out of me. And then like I'll just sit at the computer and it'll just like literally come out of me. But I'll like write for a little bit, and then like once I feel like I can't, there's nothing else that wants to leave me, I'll like go away and then come back to it, which it was hard I mean, it was good. I had a structure of like a college class. Because we had to meet deadlines and we had to finish the script. Yeah, I was kind of able, I had kind of had to finish it by the end of my junior year. And then I didn't look at it at all because at the time, I did not like looking at things that I had written. I didn't look at it all. And then I had to, because I had to direct it senior year. and then I kept revising it, but that's a story in and of itself.
Which is what we're getting into now. Which leads into my next question. What was the hardest part to write of the script of Summer, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
I think it was the harder parts are more, from what I remember, trying to balance the void scenes with the real world scenes, and like trying to weave the poetry into the script as well was very tricky, and like trying to figure out what the void scenes would even look like, or like how to express these very abstract ideas, I think was very difficult. It was also hard to trust like that like all of those elements would combine once the words were taken off of the script and like actually given form.
Like what were some of the revisions that like through those revisions process, kind of like what were the most difficult challenges and how did you overcome those challenges?
I think in revising, I remember distinctly the end of the movie where Carter and his dad get into an argument. Like trying to figure out that was kind of difficult. And that's the part I remember, like, I literally remember like being in my room, I had the lights off, I was just typing furiously at my computer. Like, again, it was just like it was coming out of me, like their entire argument. And then like I finished, I like turned the lights on and I was like, I'm not changing this at all. This is it. Like there's no other changes I can make to this. And then like, oh my God, like trying to keep track of like the mom through the script and like the mom through the void scenes, trying to figure out like what role the teacher would play in the film too, and like trying to keep it short as well. Like I only had 15 pages. So I'm like, okay, how much meat do I give to the void scenes versus how much do I need from these real world scenes to really, like, how much time should we spend at home? How much time should we spend at school? What do I really need to like tell this story in the most efficient way possible? I think that was very difficult to navigate. And like even Mrs. Peters, Mrs. Peters doesn't show up for that long. But I think in the final version of the script, she is there for like just the right amount of time. Earlier, I think the teacher was gonna have a much bigger role in Carter's life, and like trying to figure out like how much time to give. At first, the teacher was gonna be a man. I forget what his name was gonna be, but trying to figure out how much time to give the teacher was also tricky.
Side note, fuck that fighting scene. That was the almost, I feel like that was almost the end of our friendship. But that was dramatic. I was being satirical, but yeah, I get
Loki, yeah.
Okay, so can you just so that the audience kind of has like a little understanding of kind of the process of how Temple went about like being able to form, like how you got the DP, editor, producer, and everything. Can you just like brief summary, just like kind of explain how that process was to get like the main 4 people of the film?
Yeah. So Temple has concentrations that you can join and be a part of starting your junior year. And these are ideal if you know what you want to get from your career. In the film industry, you have the option to pick from the producing, the editing, or the post-production, directing. There's a screenwriting track and a cinematography track. So you get put into these concentrations your junior and senior year. Your junior year, you write your senior thesis and you film like a junior thesis, although they don't do that anymore. And then your senior year, you film your senior thesis. And at that point during your senior year, they give you a DP, they give you an editor, they give you a producer, and they give you $2,000. Your team members, you don't really have control over. Everybody gets to pitch everybody gets to pitch themselves. Everybody. Producers, DPs, directors, editors. And then people can kind of like choose their top 3. And then the department heads of each track from Temple, the professors, they all meet. They have a little summits. They decide who gets who. Which I've always been curious how those conversations go. Like, I want to be in the room. I want to fly on the wall so bad. Yeah, and then from that point on, like, you make your film with the people you have. Which is it's, you know, it kind of, it goes either way for people, depending on who you have with you. Whether you wanted those people, whether you like those people, how you work with those people. Yeah, you pretty much, the fall semester is pre-production. People start filming from the November to January. People are filming, and then the rest of the semester is post-production. So you're editing, and then everybody goes to show their films in like a little showcase at the end of the year. It's really cute. Yeah. That's pretty much the rundown.
Awesome. What was it like working with that many people and kind of like being in charge of that many people in the process of the entire thing?
Very intimidating, especially I had a lot of self-doubt going into that senior year. And we spent 2 years like going to school online. So we were in a very insular friend group. You know, I didn't necessarily branch out and connect with that many people in my first 3 years of college. So that senior year, it was like I was meeting so many people. And then there's also like, I mean, you're like making this film, everybody's grades and like future careers, honestly, is like dependent on this film that you're directing. Because everybody's gonna use this as their like calling card once they get out of, or at least that's kind of the idea. So it's very nerve-wracking. What was your question? I'm like, I want to make sure I'm answering.
Yeah, you're answering it. Okay. It was like, what were your kind of like thoughts going into like managing that many people? Like before I kind of all started being like, okay, I have to like manage a group full of people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was, I mean, I don't even necessarily look at it as managing, because they like all have their own, I'm like collaborating with these people, right? So I think once I started to understand that I am responsible for my job as the director and everybody else is responsible for their jobs, like a lot of my anxiety was lifted, because then it's not about me. Like everybody's just gonna do their job and I'm gonna do my job, and then we'll just collaborate. Yeah.
That makes sense. What was the most fun thing, and then what was the most stressful thing about pre-production?
Oh, I mean, the most fun thing about pre-production is I feel like a little kid again when I'm in pre-production, like making the storyboards and like putting together like mood boards and stuff to like talk to my DP and everybody else about. Like that part of pre-production was always fun, because you get to like be in this imaginary space, because the thing isn't real yet and you're not really making it. And you see the hardest part of pre-production? I mean, during Simmer, it was like all the reality stuff I had to do, like casting and like location scouting and like, oh my God. I think like I just had a lot of, again, I had so much anxiety about everything that like I'd be sweating. I would be out here sweating before hopping on Zoom with like any of the actors. The hardest thing was just trusting my ideas and like trusting myself again and again and again, because like people, and a lot of times like people don't, until you have that thing, until you have that product. Because even like when we were actually shooting it during Principal in January, and like we were shooting the void scenes, and I could see people were like starting to like trust me. People were like, okay, I see, like something's going on here, right? Like I kind of observed that, and I was like, okay, sometimes people don't, until you show them, it's hard. It's hard because they haven't seen it yet, right? So I mean, like I can tell myself that like they trust me, but do I really know? I kept racking with that again and again and again over that pre-production period. So it was hard to like have that dog kind of like barking outside of my door, and like not knowing how to deal with it. I think that was the hardest part.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
How about for summer particularly? What was the most fun? But also the most hard or complicated during the actual filming process when we were shooting principal like that entire week and everything? How about that process? Because we kind of went over the pre-production process, and then I kind of want to like jump into your brain about the like each process. Of so zooming in on when we actually shooting, it's a big day, big week.
Yeah.
What was the most fun aspects of that, and what were the most complicated aspects for that for you?
I mean, honestly, those 5 days are such a blur. I feel like I was on a bender. Because I think you're just so in the moment and like you're just running on adrenaline every single day. But I think the most fun I would have was like just watching the monitor. Like just watching the monitor and like seeing like the actors like doing their thing and like watching the movie like on the screen. I like live for that feeling like of just like I wanna forget I'm working. Like I when I'm like watching the monitor and like I just wanna like I wanna forget like that anything else is around me. I just wanna be like swallowed up by this moment that these humans are like expressing in front of me. Like I'm like that like oh my God, like I live for that. So that was definitely like some of the most fun part. And also just like being on set with everybody was cool. Like every single day, like being in a new location, being somewhere else. I think it was just super social. It was like very social, very fun. I think the hardest part during production, I think even during production, it was still difficult to, it was still hard, like trusting myself and like, it was still hard, like navigating, like you're now in these new dynamics with these people because now you're on set. Like you're not meeting outside, you're not meeting on Zoom, that's not happening. You're like in a new dynamic with all of these people. So it's just like trying to navigate that is like can be difficult at times, but I think that was one of the more harder aspects of it.
Now getting to the more juicy aspects. The editing process. Same question. The most fun that you had during the editing process and the most complicated aspects of the editing process.
I think like the most fun part was like the fact that you and I were editing it. I think the fact that like I could just go 2 doors down and like you'd be there, like you just work on Simmer. I feel like I was very privileged and like I'm very grateful that like you were my editor. And I think that just made like, because editing could just be a bitch. Like it could just be a pain. And I think that's kind of one of the more difficult parts is like being so attached to what you're making, which is why you even need the editor there in the first place, somebody who kind of has that objectivity. Like being so attached to like what you're making and like wanting so much control over the image. It's like sometimes it's like you're with the editor and you just want to fucking rip the computer and just like, oh, like let me just fucking do it. But you lose. The moment you do that, you lose. And I think like some scenes were tricky. Like the fight scene with the dad and Carter, that was so tricky because we didn't have a lot of coverage. Figuring out what to do at the end with the void scenes was tricky because it was kind of just like there was like a structure, but like also there was no structure. And it was just like what felt right in like putting this together. That was the hardest parts.
Awesome.
Cinema.
Okay. Cinema. How did you feel winning all those awards after the fact and kind of just like specifically winning those awards at the Temple specific festivals and then kind of like watching it on the festival run?
I felt very like overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed. And of course, I'm very, very grateful. I'm very, very grateful people something in what I made to the point that they would validate it to such a degree. But I had been very vulnerable about my experiences and not just vulnerable and like making it and putting it out there. I have been vulnerable in like my relationships that I had with my collaborators. I had like unearthed some pretty traumatic stuff about myself and the process of making it. I had so many mental breakdowns. Like at that point, like I just wanted to hide. Like I wanted to hide. And like I'm thinking about other people too. I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want all this attention. I don't want all this limelight. Like I wish it were evenly distributed, and like there wasn't more of a spotlight on what I made, because it just made me feel unsafe. It made me feel like deeply unsafe. And like that's something I had to kind of reckon with within myself. This story I have where like, what does it mean to be seen? Like, what does it mean to like have attention given to me? Because like I often feel like if I am put on a pedestal or if I am seen, like that's an opportunity for other people to like realize. In my mind, I'm like, it's only a matter of time before they realize like I'm not this person, or it's only a matter of time before they realize like I suck actually, or I'm gonna fuck it up somehow. So like I had that script that I'm like living with too. And I think like even on the other side of that experience, like I mean, when I have so much compassion for that Josh in that moment in time, because he was really struggling. But I also, I mean, like that's like the things you're most scared of. It's like oftentimes that those are the things that like you need to do. You're meant to do that, you know? Like I think a lot of people have so many fears around being seen and letting their voice be heard. I'm so glad I did that. Like I'm so glad I made Simmer. And like as shitty as it was like mentally for me, there was so much gold that like was discovered like in that process. And I think like as Simmer went through the festival run, I started to be more comfortable with, and it's not even like Simmer was getting that many awards like as I was going through the festival run. Like I just tried to be grateful. I'm so grateful I'm here. Like it like that's it. And yeah, like as I was going through the festival run, I think I got more comfortable with like, okay, I made this and like it's been validated. I know there's a value in what I made as well. I put a lot of earnest effort and intention into this as well. So that's honestly more important than any award you ever get. Like, do I see the value in what I made? Because no one can take that away from me. No one.
How are you feeling seeing it on the big screen? These different locations, these different festivals. You went all the way to Seattle. What was that kind of like experience like, and interacting with new filmmakers and watching like other filmmakers, like being a part of, like Simmer being a part of that like group of people?
Yeah.
What was that entire experience like?
It's so cool. Like, it's very, very cool. I honestly, like, every time I watch Simmer, I'm, like, either really uncomfortable or I have to meme it in my head. I can't take it seriously. I've seen it so many times. It's like, how can you take it seriously at this point? So, like, watching it now on the big screen, like, I'm always, like, speechless. Like when dad at the end and like Carter and dad get into a fight, I always feel like it's sinking in my stomach. I'm like, here we go. Like, here we go. And like I always get so hyped. And one of the Void scenes when like Oya like walks up to the drum and then she like bangs it, I'm like always so hyped for that moment, because I'm like I love that. That's like one of my favorite parts of the whole film. Because you gotta have like a wow moment, you know what I mean? Yeah. You gotta have like it's very much like a spectacle. Like I love that. But I think like it's very cool to like, in Seattle especially, like Nifty was such a like great experience, like the best festival I think I've ever been to, because it was catered towards such a young demographic of filmmakers. So you're meeting people who are on your level and like making different kinds of work, and it's so interesting to see the scale of like what people our age are coming up with, and it's also inspiring to like be around those people, because you only really experience that in college, and even then that's a pool, right? That's a bubble. So, and even like in festivals outside of Nifty, like it's just, you know, filmmakers are a very specific breed of people. So like getting to talk to different people and see where they came from and see where they're going, it's just always like valuable perspectives. Your world just like expands. I think like that's the best part of going to film festivals.
Oh, that's amazing. Now you mentioned, or you were talking about how when you paint and draw and everything, eyes are a big inspiration for you, and you love like Lovejoy and Eyes.
Yeah.
Now, what does Eyes play in the role of Simmer?
Oh yeah, I mean, Simmer's so much about the eyes. I think even like Carter's direct address and like him looking into the camera, like I always wanted Carter to have a very special relationship with the audience, and like so much, I feel like our eyes are like windows into our souls, you know, and there's so much that's communicated. Like we're close to Carter and like we can see his eyes and like he's looking into the camera. And I think like even Jalen and I in our conversations, we always wanted to keep the camera close in, especially on Carter, because the whole idea was for him to feel oppressed and boxed in wherever he was. So like making sure we were close in on Carter and like kind of very locked into his and the whole story is such a subjective experience, and it should be, because it's rooted in the Black experience. And I think like there's an aggression that's present in like Carter looking at the camera, and like when we see Carter's eyes, I think like it's so important in people understanding that like this is Carter's experience, this is Carter's story. Like we're being portaled in, like we're literally being portaled into his subconscious. Like it couldn't get more intimate than that. Like, so yeah, eyes are really important.
Awesome. Yeah, that kind of wraps up the summer aspect of the interview and everything, and now we can kind of just go into some of the more fun, not that it was, like the more like lighthearted, fun questions. So you said that you got into film on a whim.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of like explain how you got into film on a whim?
Yeah, I needed to pick a major. Okay, senior year was coming to a close, and I had to pick a major. So my cousin, I have two cousins that went to Temple actually, and so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to Temple too. When I had to pick a major, I knew that screenwriting was an option that I could pursue. And I started out as a writer. I always loved writing. So I was like, all right, I'm going to college. I can try something new with the film thing. And like, I always have that writing kind of built into it if I need to kind of fall back into something specific. And like, I was going to college. I was like, I'm trying to try shit. Like, I don't know what I want to do yet. So yeah, I kind of picked the major on a whim. Yeah, literally.
Awesome. What do you love about film?
What do I love about film? Yeah. There are so many things. I love that film is a community effort. I feel like filmmaking is kind of like a lesson for us all in collective action, because I think if you can set a tone where it's about the story, it's about the story and everyone is like on that page, I think you can bring something very powerful out of human beings when they are serving something outside of themselves. And when you make it about service, I think you also mobilize people in a different way. So I like that aspect of filmmaking, and I like that you work with your friends. I think that's super cool. I love that it's like a mishmash of so many different things. I love that it's alive from the beginning to the end. I love that it changes on you. I love that how you start out is not how you end. I think it makes the whole thing is like a living organism. From the moment you write the script to the moment you like have that final cut, it is alive, it is changing, you're finding different things. It's like constant discovery. Like working with actors is like such an amazing experience. I think like it's through the actors you really start to see how the words on the script are being embodied and expressed in different ways, and like that collaboration you're doing with the actors and the director, everybody's bringing ideas, everybody has a different take on what this scene might mean or what this actor or what this character might want in this situation. And I love hearing different ideas. I love that collaboration that we're doing together, and like that's the discovery of it all. Like it's so awesome. I'll cap it there.
Awesome. Oh, that's a really good answer. To wrap up the interview, how did you get into astrology?
Now we're getting to the fun stuff.
Yes.
I think I have to credit my sister Sarah. I think she put me on because she was always super interested in astrology. And I got into tarot first. When I got to college, actually, I bought my first tarot deck. And then I got into tarot. And then 2020, I remember getting super into astrology. Or 2020 going into 2021. And I think my spiritual journey started in 2021 when I found astrology. So I just I dived right in. I dived so deep. And at first I was just trying to learn about my own chart so I could understand myself better. And then over time, I started to expand outside of my own chart and just get more curious about other signs and other people's configurations. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
What do you love about astrology?
Such a big question. I mean, I get such a rush from the pattern recognition. Looking at somebody's chart and you start at one point and you're making these interpretations, then you start to throw in all these different other factors. I mean, it's like you're doing math, but it's you're doing it with symbols. It's really crazy, but I love that about astrology. I also love I love how it gives me another language to almost understand the world. Because if you see the zodiac as these are the 12 energies that make up the universe, there's nothing other than these 12 energies. Well, what energy is this couch?
Yeah.
What energy is this sweatshirt that I'm wearing? What energy are you? What energy is this chest in front of me? Everything all of a sudden has so much more meaning. And people get a lot more interesting too, because then, I mean, I'm kind of playing a game in my mind where I'm what is your vibe saying about your sign, and what is that even saying about this energy on a larger scale? Yeah.
How does astrology play into your artwork and filming, just your creative process?
Yeah.
In general.
I mean, sometimes I'll use it to I'll use it as a way of understanding filmmaking, for example. I'll use astrology as a way of understanding my story more, or the story I'm directing a bit more, because again, if the zodiac is the 12 energies that make up the universe, okay, what is the energy of this of this story? What is the energy of this character? Understanding okay, what planet can I attach this to, and what zodiac sign can I attach this to? Now all of a sudden I have a deeper grasp of the themes that I'm working with, or the themes that are trying to come through this story, which I feel my filmmaking and my art is spiritual. I feel I'm just a vessel for something more divine to just come through me. I mean, I said that earlier, what themes are trying to come through this story, trying to come out of this story. Astrology gives me a language to discern those messages and those themes.
Oh, that's amazing. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
What does the future look like for Joshua Afiriyie with film?
With film, I don't know.
Or in general, it could be film, social media work, anything. What does your creative outlook? What does your future look like creatively?
Right now, I've been very inspired by Doechii in particular, because this last album she put out, I feel like she was throwing paint at the wall. I feel like she tapped into this sense of play and authenticity in the art that she was making, and it shows. She is glowing. You can tell that making that art did something to her as well. And I think moving forward as an artist, that is what I want to prioritize. I want to get messy. I want to paint all over the walls. I want to recenter my art as therapy again. I think I've been making things for other people for the past year, honestly. I've been centering other people. I've been using my gifts for other people, and it's time that I prioritize myself and what my gifts can do for me. And the more I release myself from any restrictions on what that has to look like, the deeper I will be in tune with with how I operate and how things come out of me. That's where I'm at.
That's an amazing way to end the interview.
Yeah.
And side little ADHD. Fuck, that's the question that I wanted to. But due to time constraints, next time you're on, I'm assuming there's gonna be a next time. Maybe later.
Never.
Later this year. But little question. What do you think about Dochi's tiny desk?
It is amazing. Her tiny desk is so fun. Again, like I feel like you can tell when people are tapped in. You can tell when people are really tapped in. You can tell, and people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So when you meet people and you can feel they've met themselves at a deep level, it shows in the way they take up space, especially on camera, because you can't lie on camera.
Yeah.
That camera will bring things out of you, right? So I think you can tell someone like her is just very in tune. Very grounded. Tiny desk in general is just amazing. So check that out, y'all. Y'all gotta lock in.
All right, now it's your turn to plug. Plug social media, projects, anything you want to plug. This is your time to plug it, and yeah.
Lit. Okay. If y'all want to follow me, you can keep up with me. I don't even remember my Instagram handle. You're gonna have to type that. Yeah. It's Yawa. It's Yaw. I don't even know how to say my own Instagram name anymore. But you'll see on the screen. Follow me there. You can also follow my film collective, Babellion Studios, on Instagram. I have a web series coming out. I'm shooting a web series. It'll come out soon. Stay tuned for that. Past Night with Mars Apollo. I also post astrology content on TikTok. And you can also find me on YouTube at Astro Josh with three O's. I'm a weak. Well, I'm also on Tumblr, but y'all gonna have to dig to find me on Tumblr. I don't give that out to anybody. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. That was a wonderful interview.
Thank you for having me. Toodles, girlies.